So I thought today we'd do something different. I still get asked pretty frequently, why Panama? And there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of criteria I looked at, and I thought I'd go through some of that with you today for those that are curious as to why someone would move to Panama. So first thing is I did look all over the world. Keep in mind, I was looking for farmland, wanted to start homesteading, and didn't really feel like I had a lot of options in the U.S. I wanted to stop working early and couldn't afford to do that in the U.S. So started looking outside, and let me go through first things that ruled out other areas. So I ruled out most of Europe because, well, two reasons. One, I have a pit bull, and in most countries in Europe, they have banned breeds lists where you can't import an animal, a dog of a certain breed. And pit bulls are almost always on that list, if not always. So that by itself ruled out most of Europe. But for people who don't have that criteria, most of Europe I also ruled out because of the anti-Semitism and anti-immigration or immigrant, I want to say activity, but that's probably not the best word, but sentiment in so much of Europe right now. I decided it probably wasn't a good place for me to go and start homesteading. There are some places in Europe that are affordable and I could have looked at, but overall I just didn't think that was what I wanted. So I looked in Mexico, Central America, some parts of South America. And what really drew me to Panama was a bunch of things. One, I love the city. The first time I came to Panama, I didn't like Panama City. There was a lot of construction. It was very dirty. There were things about the city I liked, but I didn't love it. So that wasn't really something that drew me to Panama, but since going back, one, they've cleaned up the city a lot. They've done a lot in Panama overall with their trash issue, although they still have a long way to go. There's a lot less trash out on the streets, but they still don't manage their trash as well as we do in the States. But they're getting better. There are areas and towns that now have recycle programs, although I think that's few and far between, but they are getting much better. So for those that are looking for more of a city life, Panama City is definitely worth looking at. And I'll, at the end of this, go through some other areas that people might be interested in other than rural Panama where I am. But some other things. Very easy to get residency. Now, people say you can get a passport and get citizenship here. My understanding is that is not easy to get, and it's very rare. But you can get residency easily. And there are a couple of ways to do it. One is their pensionado visa, which is for people who have an annuity or a pension. It cannot be a revocable annuity, so pensions are really the way to do that. So if you're collecting Social Security, if you have a pension that you're collecting, you can get residency. I believe the number is still $1,000 a month for a single. Check this though, and $1,200 a month for a couple. So it's pretty easy to get if you're collecting a pension. I am not. So there are a couple other ways to do it. There's an investment visa, which I believe is a 5-year temporary visa, but you can renew it every 5 years. And then there's the Friendly Nations visa, which used to be permanent, and mine is permanent. And I know the rules have changed, but if you invest in Panama, and you currently, it's either 200,000 or 300,000, you can get the Friendly Nations visa if you're from a particular country. There's a huge list of countries, and yes, the US and Canada are both on it. So that gives you residency. Like I said, it used to be permanent residency. Not sure it still is. So you've got to do a little research on that. I could look that up and add it to the show notes. If anyone comments that they're interested in more info, I can attach links to more info on that. One thing I forgot to mention, with the pensionado visa or any visa if you're of retirement age in Panama, you do get discounts. I haven't found them to be that worthwhile. People who are helping, or who have a business helping people get their residency, really talk that up. It really depends on your lifestyle as well, but it's discounts on medical expenses, which has been helpful. Discounts on restaurants, utilities. Doesn't help me because I'm off grid, so I don't have a whole lot of utilities, and quite a bit more. But I don't go out to eat a lot. If you're living in Panama City and you're going to great restaurants all the time, you may use that. I tend to go, I'll use it at McDonald's if I go to McDonald's. But if I'm going to what they call a fonda here, which is an independent small restaurant, usually family run, usually very inexpensive, I won't ask for the discount. I'm not gonna, I know that the people who own that fonda aren't making a lot of money, and I don't need to take more of it away from them when I'm paying $3 or $4, maybe $5 for a meal. So I don't use the discounts much, but people do play that up as a big benefit. Retirement age here, I'll have to check on that, but it's either 55 or 57 as a female, and 60 or 62 as a male. And then once you're that age, no matter what kind of residency you have, you get those discounts. Okay, back to my criteria. I was looking for good medical. Here in Panama, they have some great hospitals. They have both a public and a private system. Public system is very, very, very inexpensive. The private system, you have a few options. In large cities, some of the hospitals provide their own insurance. So you sign up for their insurance, and if you use their doctors in their hospital, it benefits you. I don't do that. I pay out of pocket. My doctor charges $26 for a visit. My labs have been between $22 and $40, depending on the extent of my labs. That's with my pensionado discount. I did go for a CAT scan once, and it was, I want to say it was $350, and I paid $280 with my discount. So medical is very inexpensive. I do pay for traveler's insurance for a catastrophic injury. So if I end up in the hospital, if I have a heart attack, if I need stitches, anything like that will be paid for through that insurance. It cost me probably slightly more than a month of insurance in the US for a year of that insurance. So I do have that if I need that. It'll also fly me back to the States if I have a major illness. I believe it will fly my family out here if something happens, and there's some death insurance involved. So that's, I haven't used that. I've been to the doctor quite a few times in the past year and a half, almost year and a half. But I have not been to the hospital for anything major. So I haven't used the insurance, but I it's a little bit of peace of mind if something big happened. So that's one of the reasons. There are definitely other countries that have good medical. Costa Rica is known for their great medical care, but I think Panama meets that. There are, like I said, a couple of great hospitals in Panama City. There are 2 private hospitals that I know of, maybe 3 here in Santiago area. And I have been to the public hospital just to kind of check it out. And that visit cost me $7 for seeing a doctor, getting labs, getting 3 different medications. It was $7.12. So medical was a big one for me, and a big reason I won't be going back to the U.S. anytime soon. What else? So that was a big one. Medical, ease of immigration. Another big one is just the friendliness of the people. Panama, you'll hear people say it has low crime. It probably does, but it's got a lot of petty crime. But the people here are great. Overall, they're super friendly, very helpful. During one visit, my mom and I got stuck. We had a flat tire, and I pulled over behind a van just because we were on a really windy road, and I didn't want to get hit, and I thought, well, if they see the 2 cars, they're more likely to see the 2 cars than the one. Well, we pulled over, and these guys jumped out of their van in the pouring rain. I think they were eating their lunch in the van because it was pouring out, and changed my tire. Didn't ask for anything. I did tip them, of course, but they didn't ask for anything. So, and I found friendly people everywhere. Not to say that everyone is friendly, but there are tons of friendly people here, in both the city, in the country. That's a huge plus here in Panama. And one of the biggest reasons I chose Panama is the cost of living. So I'm probably not a good example because I went from a really expensive area, I lived in Los Angeles, to growing a lot of my own food. So I'm probably spending less than others here on that type of thing. But I have to say that I'm still doing a lot of improvements on the farm and whatnot, and I am spending less than a third of what I spent in the U.S. So it's pretty significant. I think my budget is less than my rent in LA. The baby came to say hello. So most people say 50% less. And it really depends. It depends on how you want to live. If you're living in Panama City and going out to all the great restaurants that are there and the nightlife and all that, probably 50%. You can certainly, in Panama City and probably a few other locations, spend as much as you spent in the U.S. if you want to. But for me, that wasn't an option. So I'm spending, like I said, about a third, and that includes all my farm improvements that I'm doing these days and everything. So, and I do buy some U.S. groceries. Imported items are more expensive, but there are some things that I still really like, so I buy those. So I would figure about 50% less, and if you can spend less than that, great. And some people who live in inexpensive areas of the U.S. will say it's more expensive here. I'm not sure how it possibly could be, but that's what they say. Rents are definitely going to be lower in almost every area. Another important factor for me, there's actually 2 more. One, I wasn't sure if it was a plus or a minus, but it certainly made it easier, is that they use the U.S. dollar here. So Panama has their own currency called the Balboa, but 1 Balboa is pegged to 1 U.S. dollar. And they don't print paper money in Panama. So any paper money is in US dollars. And then they have their own coins that go up to the Balboa. I think that's the biggest one. So here you might get a quarter, or you might get the equivalent coin, Panamanian coin. And it really doesn't matter. They're used interchangeably. So you might see things priced at 1B, that's 1 Balboa, same as $1. So that made it easy. I didn't have to worry about currency exchange. That to me was a plus. Where it could be a negative is if you had concerns about U.S. currency or U.S. inflation. And for me, another big plus was that there's a good amount of English spoken here. Where I live, I can find people that speak English. They're very tolerant of people that don't speak Spanish. When I moved here, I really didn't speak Spanish. Yes, I took it in high school. Yes, I took some classes when I was in LA, knowing I was moving here, but I didn't speak it. Now, the negative to that is Panamanians speak extremely fast, and it's almost like somebody who doesn't speak English talking to someone from New England with a strong accent. They drop a lot of letters. So even if you speak some Spanish, you might struggle in the beginning with the Panamanian Spanish. But that being said, they are very tolerant of my lack of Spanish. Everyone uses Google Translate when it's just so easy to use. And so the language barrier, although has made things a little more difficult at times, has not really been a huge problem. So where I live right now, very few people speak English, but some do. There's a nice woman who lives in town who has always said, if you need anything, let her know. She translates for me occasionally, but most of the time it's Google Translate. But that's been a big plus. And then if you're living in an expat community, there's a lot of English spoken. Not that all expats are from the US and Canada, but there's a lot of English spoken typically. So those are the big pluses. Now, to talk about some different locations in Panama that you might be interested in looking at, I'll go through. There's probably something for almost everyone, as long as you're not looking to go skiing every day. Before I talk about the areas, there was one thing I forgot to mention that didn't affect me but might affect others. Panama does not tax you on any income made outside of Panama. So if you're working remotely for a company in another country, you're not taxed in Panama on that income. If you're selling products to someone in another country over the internet, you're not taxed on that. You're not taxed on investment income unless it's investment in Panama. And then I'm not sure how the Panamanian taxes work. So again, not a big issue for me, but maybe an issue for you. And one other thing to think about, not something I really was overly concerned with, but certainly something to think about for some of you. So let's talk about the areas in Panama, in different areas. There are microclimates everywhere. So you may live, so where I live, I might get pouring rain, and just a few streets down, they might get a light drizzle. You really have to look at microclimates if you're looking at moving here. Most people recommend that you rent for a while, check out the climate, check out the area. I didn't do that because I wanted to get my Friendly Nations visa, so I had to invest. You can invest in a CD, and that would give you the Friendly Nations visa if you wanted to do it that way, but I decided to buy my property and use that as my investment. So let's talk about areas. Of course, there's Panama City. Panama City is a large city. I think something like 50% of the country lives in Panama City. Don't quote me on that, but a huge majority, a huge percentage of the population in all of Panama lives in Panama City. They've got great upscale malls. They've got everything from fancy restaurants to fondas. They really have almost everything you could want there, but it is a city. If you want to live in a city, that's where I'd live. Like I said, I enjoy Panama City. I wish I got there more often, but I don't think I'd want to live there. So that's option number one. Option number two would be to live near a beach. Now, there are lots of areas where there are beaches. There's an area about an hour and a half outside of Panama City that is got a lot of expat communities. There's a couple of towns, so I'm not going to name them. If you wanted more information on that, I could point you in the right direction. Just leave me a comment below. And those areas also have some golf courses, so that's an option. If you want to golf, beach, that kind of lifestyle, there are places in Panama for that. There are a lot of rural communities, both expat communities and non-expat communities, but there are some expat communities that I would consider rural, where there's a lot of horseback riding, a lot of farm animals. Those are available. One of those is, I would consider Santa Fe, a more rural community. It's about 2 hours north of Santiago, or an hour and a half north of Santiago. And it's got a nicer climate because it's up in the mountains. So they have much cooler evenings. They have more of a breeze. And then they also have access to the Caribbean on the other side of Panama. And then there are some smaller cities. David and Santiago are smaller cities, both much warmer climates. David is fairly close to Costa Rica, so if you think you'd be wanting to do a lot of day trips to explore Costa Rica, that's an option. And then north of David is a big expat community in Boquete. Boquete is in the mountains. It probably has the most perfect weather of all of Panama. Most Panamanians would tell you it's cold there, but I think it's perfect weather. It's probably in the mid to high 70s during the day, and mid to high 60s at night. Maybe gets in the 80s during the day, and then it's long sleeve sweatshirt weather in the evenings, but still very comfortable. So a lot of expats live up in that area. If you go north of Boquete, the mountain goes up even higher than Boquete, so there's some even cooler areas, and that's a place a lot of people like. And then there's places on the Caribbean, like Bocas del Toro is a group of islands, as well as some of the mainland is considered Bocas, and that is on the Caribbean. And so if you want the island life, you can have that here in Panama. There's really something for everyone. It really depends on what you're looking for. I definitely am a little bit off the beaten path in that I am in almost exclusively, although not exclusively, there are some other expats here, but very few. This is where I'm living, is primarily a Panamanian area, but I was looking for a rural, and I found it here. If I were to do it all over again, I think it's hotter here than I need it to be. I like the warm weather, but it took me about 6 months to get used to just being outside here. I'd say 4 months to really get used to being outside in this heat. It's hot here. Some people love that, and I definitely was looking for more of that than cool weather. Another big positive about Panama is that it is a hub for Copa Airlines in Central America. Well, for Copa Airlines all over the world. And I believe it's a hub for United in Central America. So it's really easy to fly almost anywhere from Panama City. And then there are small airports throughout the country that can get you pretty quickly to Panama City. The bus system is great. For me, I'm 4.5 hours from Panama City. The bus, I would take 2 buses if I were to go from almost my house to Panama City. If I were to drive to Santiago, it would be 1 direct bus. That bus is about $19 right now. And the local bus to get to Santiago, I think, is $0.25. There are also taxis throughout the country. There are Ubers in the major cities. I know there's Ubers in Panama City. I'm not sure if there are Ubers in other parts of the country. But if I were in Panama City, I'd use an Uber. So there's also trains in Panama City. So there's tons of public transportation, as well as, of course, driving your own car if that's what you're looking to do. So that's my update on why Panama. If you have questions, and I'm sure I didn't answer everything, please put them in the comments below, and I will either get you an answer or point you in the right direction to a website that will give you a lot more information. Hopefully that helps give you some more information on why I chose Panama and why you might want to choose Panama. If you want to follow along on my homesteading journey, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell so that you're notified when our next video comes out. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.